In the year 244 AD, a boy emperor lay dead in the sands of Mesopotamia, betrayed by his own men. In his place, a man rose from the deserts of Arabia, a former soldier, a foreigner to the Roman elite, a man who would become emperor in one of Rome's darkest hours. His name was Marcus Julius Philippus, remembered by history as Philip the Arab. In a world beset by civil war, plagues, economic ruin and foreign invasions, he did the unthinkable. He made peace with Rome's most dangerous enemy, stabilized the empire, however briefly, and presided over Rome's 1000th birthday celebration, a moment of hope in a century of collapse. But was he a savior of Rome, or a traitor who bought peace with blood and gold? This is the story of Philip the Arab, the emperor who made peace with Persia, and the forgotten Jubilee. Philip's story begins far from Rome, in the Roman province of Arabia Petrea, in what is now modern-day Syria or Jordan. Born around 204 AD in the small town of Shaba, his origins were humble but strategic. The region had long been a crossroads of cultures, and Philip, son of a tribal sheikh or local notable, grew up speaking Latin and Greek alongside Arabic. His family, though not of senatorial rank, had means and influence. Philip's brother Priscus was already rising through the ranks of the Roman bureaucracy, eventually serving as a senior administrator under Emperor Gordian III. It was likely through his brother's patronage that Philip entered imperial service, quickly climbing the ranks of the Praetorian Guard, the elite unit that protected the emperor. By the early 240s, Rome was being pulled apart. The young Emperor Gordian III, barely a teenager, was leading a campaign deep into Persian territory against Shapur I of the Sassanid Empire. Priscus was managing the eastern provinces, and behind the scenes, Philip, calculating and ambitious, was waiting. When Gordian was killed under murky circumstances, either in battle or murdered by his own men, Philip made his move. Philip's first act as emperor was neither a conquest nor a purge, but a negotiation. Facing a collapsing supply line, demoralized troops, and the looming Persian army, he struck a peace deal with Shapur I. Rome would pay a massive indemnity, 500,000 denarii, and quietly abandon parts of Mesopotamia. To many in the Senate and military elite, this was an embarrassment. Rome did not pay tribute, but to the exhausted eastern legions, it was a lifeline. Philip spun the defeat as a victory. He declared himself the bringer of peace, returned Gordian's body to Rome with honors, and solidified his image as a stabilizing figure. He was declared emperor by the army in 244 AD, and the Senate reluctantly ratified it soon after. He would rule for 5 years, longer than any emperor between Severus Alexander and Aurelian, but he would rule an empire crumbling from within. Philip's reign was anything but peaceful. In Gaul and the Danube, Germanic tribes crossed the frontiers. In Africa and the Balkans, famine and disease spread. And in the provinces, ambitious generals watched Rome's weaknesses with hungry eyes. Philip faced constant rebellions. Parcatianus rose in Moesia, Jotapianus in the east. Even the legions in Syria and Egypt simmered with discontent. To deal with these threats, Philip made his brother Priscus governor of the east, giving him extraordinary powers. It was a double-edged sword. While Priscus helped suppress unrest, many saw this as nepotism and a return to monarchy in all but name. Philip also had to contend with the Senate, where he was viewed as an outsider, even a usurper. His Arab origins, while tolerated by the pragmatic army, were a source of scorn in Rome. Satirical poems mocked him. Rumors of betrayal and greed spread. Yet through it all, he held the empire together, barely. In 248 AD, Rome turned 1,000 years old, at least according to traditional founding dates. Philip saw an opportunity. Despite inflation, wars, and unrest, he staged a grand secular games, the Jubilee of Rome. Chariot races, gladiatorial battles, beast hunts, theatrical performances, all were held in extravagant celebration. Coins were minted bearing legends like Seculares Augustorum and Eternitas Romae. Statues were raised, temples restored. The empire paused, if only for a moment, to bask in its own mythology. For many, this was a rare moment of hope. Roman identity, so battered by decades of crisis, found renewal in spectacle and pageantry. Philip positioned himself as the restorer of Rome, not unlike Augustus before him. But not everyone believed the illusion. The crisis still raged outside the city. Legions were still restless, and some believed Philip's peace with Persia had come at the cost of Rome. Among the most debated questions about Philip is his faith. Some Christian writers, most notably Eusebius, claimed that Philip was the first Christian emperor, even suggesting he sought forgiveness from Bishop Babylas of Antioch before entering church on Easter. But the evidence is murky. Philip did not persecute Christians like his predecessors. His reign was relatively tolerant, but he also never explicitly embraced Christianity in public coinage, laws, or titles. Some scholars believe the claim was part of Christian propaganda, retroactively inserting their faith into imperial favor. Still, the notion of a Christian emperor presiding over Rome's millennium, even symbolically, was powerful, and it made Philip an intriguing figure for both pagans and Christians in later centuries. Philip's downfall came not from foreign invasion, but internal revolt. In 249 AD, the Danubian legions proclaimed a new emperor, Gaius Messius Quintus Decius, a senator, general, and traditionalist. Decius had been sent by Philip to quell unrest, but his troops declared him emperor instead. Philip rushed north to meet him in battle at Verona. What happened there is uncertain. Some say Philip was defeated and killed, others that he died at the hands of his own men before the battle began. Either way, he died on September 249 AD, and with him, his son Philip II, murdered by the Praetorian Guard. The dynasty he tried to found collapsed in an instant. Decius took the throne, and the empire plunged deeper into chaos. Philip is often overlooked in Roman history. He was not a great conqueror. He did not build vast monuments. He was not loved by the Senate or feared by the barbarians, but his reign was one of the few brief moments of stability in a century otherwise defined by collapse. He ended a war with Persia that could have shattered the East. He held the empire together through plagues, rebellion, and famine. He celebrated Rome's 1000th anniversary with dignity and pride, and he may have been the first emperor to embrace religious tolerance, paving the way for later Christian emperors like Constantine. In the chaos of the 3rd century, these things mattered. Even if he is forgotten by most, Philip the Arab represents a glimpse of what the empire might have been, had peace, not war, been given time to work. In a century of emperors who rose and fell like waves on a stormy sea, Philip stood firm, if only for a moment. He came from the margins of the empire, ruled during its darkest days, and died trying to preserve it. Was he a traitor who bought peace with gold? Or a visionary who saw that Rome could no longer conquer its way to salvation? You decide. If you enjoyed this dive into the life of Philip the Arab and the forgotten Roman millennium, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more deep history. Let us know in the comments, was Philip a wise peacekeeper, or a weak ruler who doomed Rome further?